Good morning. I hope that everybody is having a good morning. I hope that you are wearing your green, getting ready to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Great time to have with your family. Today, we're going to be reading a story about a little girl who is wandering in the woods and finds an empty house. While we're reading the story, I want you guys to be thinking about how her actions are troublesome and how her actions impact the feelings of other characters within the story. As always, when we're listening to stories, I want you to be thinking about what parts could have happened and what parts were made up and probably exaggerated a little bit. Also, before we get started, because this video is for ages of all ages, I want to go over a few vocabulary words that some of my younger people and younger viewers might not know. So the first word we're going to look at is finally. When we hear the word finally, let's get it right there, it means that it's at the very end, something that happens after everything else. For example, after 4 tries, he finally got the ball into the basket. Okay. Our next word is forest. A forest is a place with many trees. For example, the forest is home to many different animals like deer, raccoons, and bears. We have the word startled. That means to be suddenly surprised. I was startled when the door slammed behind me. And the word tiny means very small. Stars look like tiny twinkling lights in the night sky. We also have 2 other words that are going to pop up a couple of times within our story. The first one is a cottage. A cottage is the kind of house. Normally it's something that is an old in the woods, an older house, not like we have right now. And the second word is porridge. Porridge is kind of like oatmeal. So when we hear that the bears are eating their porridge, what that means is that they're eating something that's similar to oatmeal. So with all of that going, let's go ahead and take a look at our story.
A little girl goes for a walk in the woods when she comes upon a small cabin. She enters the house and finds 3 bowls of porridge sitting on the table. Should she sit at the table and eat the porridge? What would happen if the occupants of the house were to return home while she was still inside? Once upon a time, there were 3 bears who lived in a house in the forest. There's a great big papa bear, a medium-sized mama bear, and a tiny little baby bear. One morning, Papa Bear cooked some delicious porridge for the bears' breakfast. When it was ready, Papa Bear poured his own porridge into a great big bowl. Next, he poured Mama Bear's porridge into a medium-sized bowl. Finally, Papa Bear poured Baby Bear's porridge into a tiny little bowl. He placed each bowl on the kitchen table. Then, while they waited for the hot porridge to cool, the 3 bears went for a walk in the woods. That very same morning, a golden-haired girl named Goldilocks had also gone for a walk in the woods. However, Goldilocks lost her way and came upon the bear's cottage, or little house. Goldilocks saw an open window. She peeked inside the cottage. No one was there, but she spotted the 3 bowls of porridge on the table. Goldilocks went inside. She was hungry and decided to eat the porridge. First, she used a great big spoon to taste the porridge in the great big bowl. "Too hot," said Goldilocks. Next, Goldilocks used a medium-sized spoon to taste the porridge in the medium-sized bowl. "Too cold," said Goldilocks. Finally, using the tiny little spoon, she tasted the porridge in the tiny little bowl. "Just right," said Goldilocks as she gobbled it up. Now, Goldilocks looked around the room. She saw a great big chair, a medium-sized chair, and a little tiny chair. "I'm tired," said Goldilocks. So she sat down in the great big chair. It was too hard. Next, Goldilocks sat down in the medium-sized chair, but it was too soft. Finally, she sat down in the little tiny chair.
What do you think is going to happen? Let's see.
And just as she was thinking that the little tiny chair was just right, crash! The chair broke into pieces. Goldilocks fell to the floor. Goldilocks stood right up and was startled to see that the chair had broken into pieces. She was still tired, so she looked for another place to rest. She went upstairs and found 3 beds. There was a great big bed, a medium-sized bed, and a little tiny bed.
Which one do you think Goldilocks is going to like the best? We've already seen something from 2 other times. During this 3rd time, what do you think is going to happen? Okay, this is also one of the things that with stories, a lot of times you're going to see 3s happen a lot of times. They'll happen the 1st time, then a 2nd time, and now we're going to see it in the 3rd time.
First, Goldilocks tried to lie down on the big bed, but it was too smooth. Next, she tried the middle-sized bed, but it was too lumpy. Finally, she stretched out on the tiny bed. It was just right. Goldilocks fell fast asleep. As Goldilocks slept, the 3 bears returned from their walk. They sat down to eat and knew right away that something was wrong. Papa Bear looked at his great big bowl. He cried out in a loud voice, "Someone has been eating my porridge." Mama Bear looked at her middle-sized bowl. She said in her middle-sized voice, "Someone has been eating my porridge." Then Baby Bear looked at his little tiny bowl. He squeaked in his little tiny voice, "Someone has been eating my porridge and is eating it all up." Then the 3 bears looked around. Papa Bear looked at his great big chair. He cried out in his great big voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair." Mama Bear looked at her middle-sized chair. She said in her middle-sized voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair." Then Baby Bear looked at the broken pieces of his little tiny chair. He squeaked in his little tiny voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair and has broken it all to pieces." The 3 bears ran upstairs to the bedroom. Papa Bear looked at his great big bed. He said in his great big voice, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed." Mama Bear looked at her middle-sized bed. She said in her middle-sized voice, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed." Then Baby Bear looked at his little tiny bed. He squeaked in his little tiny voice, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed, and here she is." At that very moment, Goldilocks woke up. She saw the 3 bears standing over her. She was shocked and afraid. So she scrambled out of the tiny bed and ran down the stairs out of the cottage. The 3 bears never saw Goldilocks again.
All right. Now that we've heard this story, I want you guys to think about, how do you think the 3 bears felt when they came home and there was a strange person that had been eating their food, sitting in their chairs, and sleeping in their beds? How would you have felt if you came home to find that? What kind of mistakes did Goldilocks make? Do you think she learned from her mistakes? What makes you think that? Now, normally after I do my read alouds, I have a discussion with the students. I want you guys to be able to have the same type of discussion with your kids when they're at home. So I'm going to share my screen once again with you. Hold on just a second. All right. So after we've heard the story, I want you guys to have your children retell the story. With the younger students, just have them retell the sequence of events. What happened next, then what, finally what happened. For your older students or children, have them summarize the story in their own words. After they finish, have a family discussion over the story using the following questions. Have your children explain the answers by asking them why and how did you know this? Okay. Don't accept just one sentence answers. Always have them explain why they think that. What makes you know this? Where did we hear this in the story? Also, we have a response to text. What I want you guys to do is we're going to use Gretchen Bernabei's pet peeve text structure to write a diary entry thinking that we're Little Bear. So I want each of your kids to think of themselves as Little Bear. Okay. Then I'm going to ask you guys to use this text structure, what I saw first, what I said to myself, what else I saw, what I decided, and what I know now. After using this and writing your little kernel essay, which means that you answer each one of those sentences first, it can be just a regular sentence at first. Then you're going to expand on it. So what was the first thing that Little Bear saw? Okay. What did its Little Bear say to himself? You're going to be pretending that you're Little Bear when doing this. Okay. Just like before, don't accept and don't just give one sentence answers. We want this to be an actual story, an actual journal entry. Okay. So I'm going to leave copies of this in the comment section and the description below. Sorry. I would love, like always, to hear from you guys, to hear your journal entries. So if you want to take a picture of your entry, if you want to type it out and put it into the comment section below. Also, you can follow us on Twitter. Put it there at Mystery and Dragons. Okay. I can't wait to see these. And like always, I will try to share these as we get them in. Of course, this is the first time we're doing this, so hopefully it gets more and more as time goes on. Okay. Have a great day. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and have a lot of fun with your family. Bye, Dragons.